Outcasted OC. Viewer discretion is advised. Incoming transmission in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, it's Courtney here from the Outcasted OC Podcast, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw recap. You guys know I don't like to waste time with too much of an introduction. It was a really good show this week. Let's chat about it. So Monday Night Raw this week starts off with Cody Rhodes making his way out to the ring, and we had a quick video recap of last week where we got to see that he still wasn't able to fully discuss the reasons as to why Jey Uso has now moved to Monday Night Raw. So he welcomes everybody to Monday Night Raw and said that he's been interrupted for the last 2 weeks while he's been trying to explain why main event Jey Uso has moved to Raw. And he said with Jey moving over to Monday Night Raw, somebody will have to move over to SmackDown. We're still not too sure who that person will be, and he said that Jey's move is obviously disgruntled a lot of people within the Monday Night Raw locker room, and goes ahead and says that, you know, me and Jey aren't besties, and we're not in the third inning anymore. Now, if you know Bloodline references, you'll know that Paul Heyman used the third inning as a way of explaining what part of the Bloodline story they're up to, so it's good to see that Cody's referenced that. And he says, you know, we're not friends or anything, but I couldn't stand by and watch him get jumped by the Judgment Day, as the Judgment Day is probably the most toxic faction in all of WWE. The Judgment Day's music hits, and Finn Balor starts off by asking Cody Rhodes why he is always up in Judgment Day's business. Damian Priest says that, you know, Jey Uso had the opportunity to join a real family, but unfortunately he didn't want to, and we dealt with Jey Uso. But you can't help yourself. You can't seem to stop always wanting to be the superhero in every story. And Dominic goes and follows up on Damian and says, you know, Jey Uso is going to pay for what's happened, but obviously we can't really hear Dominic Mysterio very much. So Cody goes ahead and says, you know, that's really rude of me. Why don't you keep going, Dom? And then he goes ahead and says, you know, Dom, you actually have a real family that don't like you. And he says, you know, when Rhea Ripley returns, is she going to return to you guys being empty-handed in terms of no longer having your titles? And asks what you're going to do. And Dom freaks out and goes, keep mommy's name outside of your mouth, like, you know, out of your mouth. And then the entirety of Judgment Day try to square up against Cody, and then Jey ends up joining Cody in the ring, so they're kind of facing off with each other. And then obviously the numbers advantage is still there, and then Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn join. Judgment Day start kind of retreating because Judgment Day only has the 3 men in there, and obviously KO, Sami, and Jey Uso, as well as Cody, that's still outnumbered. But then we go ahead and see that JD McDonough comes out. Now he's walking out to the ring with a couple of steel chairs, tries to pass them over to the boys and is like, let's go. So what's very interesting in this moment is JD, Dominic, and Finn, they all run to go and start brawling with the others that are in the ring, where Damian Priest is kind of standing back being like, guys, let's not do this, like, I don't want to, but then he ends up going and joining them anyway. There's a massive brawl ensuing within the ring. I also find it really funny in this moment where Kevin Owens is actually wearing a Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero t-shirt. If you know, you know. I thought that was a really clever touch. Then we have the first match of the night, which is Otis versus Bronson Reed. Now, Wade Barrett on commentary very much discussed this as, you know, 2 big men slapping meat, you know, as Big E would say. This was a really short match. It kind of didn't really have a whole lot of preparation going into it in terms of reasons as to why this was happening. I genuinely just think it was 2 big men slapping meat, which that's fine. The match kind of revolved around the storyline of it's 2 big guys, so what move is going to outpower the other big guy. So there's a couple of shoulder tackles that came in from both of them, but obviously no budging between the 2 because they're both strong enough to be able to resist and hold off on their shoulder tackles. Otis goes for a clothesline, but then Bronson Reed runs away. Bronson Reed ends up hitting Otis with a Samoan drop followed by, it's like a double crossbody move where they both try to crossbody each other. And then Bronson Reed ends up hitting a running senton on Otis followed by a tsunami to take away the win on the match. I'm really liking how they're building up Bronson Reed. I'm really enjoying it. And obviously with the announcement of Elimination Chamber in Australia, we could potentially see a lot of the Australian talent being built up around that premium live event. So seeing Bronson Reed going up the card is something that I'm really happy to see. Then we have a backstage segment where Becky Lynch is polishing her NXT championship backstage, where Tegan Knox actually comes in. And Becky's like, hey, like, Tegan, where were you last week? Like, that open challenge that I put out there, I was really hoping that you'd answer it. I found it really cool that they were actually talking about this and bringing it to the surface, because obviously this is a massive issue. The fact that Tegan Knox actually didn't answer the challenge, that was heavily rumoured last week. That was who was meant to answer the challenge. She goes ahead and says that, you know, she let Natty jump ahead, and she was basically like, you know, I didn't take my opportunity. But then Becky goes ahead and says that you need to step on people's toes to be able to get what you want. And then Tegan obviously is like, yeah, no, I totally agree. But then obviously Tegan's like thinking about maybe they could do a Becky Lynch versus Tegan Knox match. Would be really interesting to see where that goes. But as I said, I'm really enjoying the fact that they brought up this, because this was such a massive talking point across the internet last week as to why it wasn't Tegan Knox versus Becky Lynch in that open challenge. Then we cut to Adam Pearce on the phone. Now he is just discussing with whoever's on the phone, I'm assuming it's Triple H, that they have still not finalised a pick for someone to be transferred over to SmackDown, when he invites Tegan Knox into the room, and Tegan basically says to Adam Pearce, you know, I'm all about opportunities, and I would really like an opportunity to take on the winner of the NXT match, obviously that's taking place at NXT No Mercy. So whether or not that is Tiffany Stratton or Becky Lynch, she'd love the opportunity to take on the winner of that match. Adam Pearce is like, yeah, actually it's a really good idea. And who else comes in other than Natalya? And Natalya goes ahead and she says, you know, Tegan, it's really nice to see you, but unfortunately I'd really like a rematch. Which I don't understand why, and neither did Tegan, because Tegan goes ahead and says, well, you know, Natty, you did actually lose your match next week, and it's about time that somebody who's more passionate actually gets the opportunity. I've stood back and haven't gotten half the opportunities that you've got. And they start fighting back and forth, and then Adam Pearce goes ahead and sets up a match between the two of them for tonight. So we're going to see Tegan Knox versus Natalya. Now, I just don't like Natalya. I don't know what it is. I can appreciate her in-ring work and I respect her as a member of WWE, but I just don't like the way that they continually keep booking her over other people that actually deserve a chance, i.e. Tegan Knox. I would really enjoy seeing a Tegan Knox versus Becky Lynch or a Tegan Knox versus Tiffany Stratton match over anything Natalya based. I just think it's about time we start giving some of the other women a little bit more of an opportunity to shine. I feel like Natalya's had her time. We have spoken ad nauseum about this on the podcast. It's not the first time I'm bringing this up, but I'm just really wanting more of the women to get an opportunity. Then we have the match between Tommaso Ciampa and Ludwig Kaiser. Now this is kind of built out of like a digital exclusive that happened earlier on in the day. Obviously Tommaso Ciampa went up against Giovanni Vinci and he confronted the whole of Imperium because he obviously wants to go after Gunther's Intercontinental Championship title. Now that is something I'm totally here for, but we had the match between Tommaso and Ludwig. It was a really good match, very hard hitting. The chemistry was really good. So Tommaso Ciampa is looking very strong in this match from the beginning, and he ends up hitting Ludwig with some chops. Ludwig ends up clubbing Tommaso Ciampa and throwing Tommaso into the ring steps. Once we come back from the commercial break, Ludwig is in control of this match, but Tommaso turns it round and ends up clotheslining Ludwig into the off the ring apron, hits a Willow's bell and then gets a 2 count, but then ends up, it's like a move where like there's a reverse DDT by Tommaso Ciampa. Giovanni Vinci tries to interfere, but then Tommaso ends up kicking him in the face, but then he's not really helping Ludwig as much as Ludwig kind of intended. During this match, we see that Ludwig actually gets really angry at Giovanni and kind of just tells him to go away. But then we end up seeing a flash knee coming out from Tommaso Ciampa and he ends up taking away the win on this match. I think it was the right call, furthering the issues between all of the members of Imperium, whilst also progressing Tommaso Ciampa further up the card. I love Tommaso Ciampa. I cannot wait for him to get an opportunity to hold some more gold. I am obsessed. I'm just so happy for him. Then we had a Dragon Lee video package. Now this is obviously in preparation for the match that will be taking place on Monday Night Raw tonight, which is for the NXT North American Championship. He'll be challenging Dominic Mysterio. I think this was quite cool. This is actually Dragon Lee's Raw debut on the main roster. So I really liked they had a wee video package. They showed a lot of footage from him pre-WWE as well too, which was a really cool way to actually show who he is and kind of what he's done. Then we end up finding out that Becky Lynch is actually going to be on commentary for the match between Tegan Knox and Natalya. One thing I did notice is that Tegan Knox's entrance was during the commercial break, but Natalya got a fully aired entrance. Now, I really would have appreciated it if it was the other way around. Don't know why Tegan's entrance had to be during a commercial break, but anyway, this match was good. It was really short. Nothing really interesting kind of happened apart from Tegan Knox coming away with the win, which I think was the right call. Then we see a Judgment Day backstage segment. Now, obviously, you've got JD McDonough, Dominic Mysterio, I should say, and Finn Balor kind of chatting backstage, where Damian Priest kind of comes in mid-conversation and just gets really angry with the fact that JD McDonough is kind of lingering around the Judgment Day, kind of assuming he's already a part of the faction without being properly invited to be a part of it. Damian Priest just goes absolutely nuts, kicks JD McDonough out and just starts throwing stuff everywhere, and honestly, I was so incredibly here for this. Then we had Seth Rollins coming out to cut a promo, so he welcomed everybody to Monday Night Rollins and says that, you know, if you think that Shinsuke Nakamura is out here playing games, you can go ahead and sing my song. So the entire crowd starts singing his song and says, you know, if you're sick of Shinsuke, sing it louder. If you think I should defend my title, go ahead and sing it louder. And he calls out Shinsuke Nakamura and says, hey, you've been calling me out for weeks, so let's finally get an answer out of you. Otherwise, I'm going to pull the opportunity for the World Heavyweight Championship rematch completely out of your hands if you don't give me an answer as to what you want. We get a video promo coming up on the screen from Shinsuke Nakamura and saying, Seth, you know, you've got so many demands for me. Name a time, name a place, name this, name this. No wonder your back has given out on you. You're incredibly impulsive. You don't have any patience. And he says that he is going to accept the challenge of Seth Rollins'S rematch. Now, this will be taking place at Fastlane, and we will be having a last man standing stipulation, which I am so incredibly here for. I love this idea. So Seth Rollins goes ahead and says, you know, Shinsuke Nakamura did play this, you know, the right way. He did, in fact, get what he wants, but he doesn't realize that he's making a mistake here. And says, you know, Shinsuke thinks that, you know, my broken back is a weakness. And there was something in Shinsuke's promo where he went ahead and said, you know, that his family would be too afraid to look at him if he doesn't make the right decision. And, you know, Seth goes ahead and references this and says, you know, that my daughter's going to be too afraid to take a look at me. That's actually a strength, you know. He says that my family would be more ashamed of me if I did not actually take this opportunity and give it my all. And he says, you know, that this is the last time, and this could be his last match. Every time he steps in the ring with the way that his back is, he genuinely feels like this could be the last time that we could see him. So he always wants to give his 100% when it comes to the World Heavyweight Championship. And he said that he is the best in the world. Now, he put a lot of emphasis on that. If you guys don't know the saying best in the world, that is how CM Punk describes himself. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I did pick up on that. And, you know, he said that at the end of the day, the best in the world and the World Heavyweight Champion is not going to be you, Shinsuke Nakamura. So it's awesome to see that we are finally having some matches actually confirmed for Fastlane. I am so here for this. Then we see Jackie's backstage and she's just catching up with Ricochet. Now, Ricochet had a moment a couple of weeks ago where Shinsuke Nakamura sneak attacked him, and now Shinsuke is actually... Shinsuke's going into this match with Seth Rollins, but Ricochet is actually injured. Now, I don't know if this is storyline based or if this is genuine, but he's on crutches. And Ricochet basically just tells Jackie that he has unfinished business with Shinsuke Nakamura. So when he's healthy and ready to go, he'll be going back after Shinsuke. Then we see a video recap of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's tag team match with the Judgment Day from Payback. This is obviously to amp up the main event that they've got tonight, but I don't really understand why we needed to see it. If we've been catching up with WWE television, we'll know that they had that match. Then we had the match between Dragon Lee and Dominic Mysterio for the NXT North American Championship. Now, the entirety of Judgment Day was not actually ringside for this match, which I thought was really good. gave Dragon Lee a really good chance to get a proper showing and actually, for his Raw debut, put on a really good show without the interference of anybody. And it also showed that Dominic Mysterio can actually hold a match without having to have interference by his faction members. So from the start, the chemistry between the two of them was fantastic. It was a great match. I highly recommend you go and watch it. There are so many beautiful sequences coming in from Dragon Lee. Now, I'm going to be honest here. I have not watched many Dragon Lee matches, but I feel like I'm going to have to go back and watch some because his in-ring work is just phenomenal. Very much reminds me of an early Rey Mysterio. We can see that Dominic Mysterio during the match as well too has done this really funny thing where he's tied Dragon Lee's mask to the bottom ring rope and is just giving him like a whole bunch of kicks. Dragon Lee tries to hit this Hurricanrana on Dominic Mysterio over the ring ropes. It was a really good match. I was just so enthralled with what was going on. Unfortunately, Dragon Lee did not win the NXT North American Championship. Dominic Mysterio retained, but as I said earlier, I definitely suggest you go and watch this video. You can watch this video, but go and watch the match as well too. I think the match was really great, and for a debut match as well too, I think it was a really good showing, especially for Dragon Lee. Then we see a Nia Jax video recap of her destruction since returning to Monday Night Raw, so it's shown the last couple of weeks what she's been up to, and then we see Nia Jax is making her way to the ring backstage. After this is followed by Jackie catching up with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens is basically saying, he's not wanting to help Jey Uso, and he wants to get his hands on the Judgment Day so they can reclaim their tag team championships. And Sami says, it's about us taking back what is ours, and this is obviously in preparation for that main event. Then we had an in-ring interview segment with Michael Cole. Now he introduces Nia Jax out to the ring. She has new ring music, like a new theme as well too, which I'm not really too sure if I can get into it just yet, but it is what it is. And Michael Cole starts talking with her and kind of just figuring out, what's going on. And Nia goes ahead and, she's kind of not paying attention to what Michael says, and she's like, oh, did you say something? Like I wasn't really paying attention. And she says she's the baddest human in all of WWE. And starts talking about, Rhea and Shayna and Zoe and Raquel, Piper, Chelsea. She said she squashed all of them. And she says that she will squash anybody because she's the baddest human in all of WWE. And then Zoe Stark's music hits and she tries to square up with Nia and basically just like, hit me, and ends up interrogating her, and then they end up getting into a brawl. And then we go to a commercial break. After the commercial break, we have a match between Zoe Stark and Nia Jax. If you guys have been keeping up with these reviews, as of late, you know that I'm actually turning into a massive Zoe Stark fan. I feel like they've just completely undone all this work that they've been putting in with Zoe. I know that they're trying to make Nia look really strong, but ragdolling Zoe around and not giving her many opportunities to actually get any offense in is just counterintuitive for what you're trying to do for the women's division. It's not helping. So very much from the beginning, Nia is getting a lot of, offense in when Zoe's trying to build her way back in momentum wise. She does this move where she tries to pick up Nia but ends up falling down, so she doesn't successfully do it. Nia hits Zoe with a leg drop followed by her new finisher, the Annihilator, and comes away with the win. As I said, not a fan of this. Then we see Byron Saxton's backstage and he's catching up with Jey Uso. Jey basically goes ahead and, Byron's like, what's going on? And Jay's like, I'm not joining any groups. I don't want to be a part of an emo group. I don't want to be a part of, Judgment Day. And he says that it's not his kind of people. And then Byron says, well, you've got a lot of issues with people in this locker room. Like, how do you feel? And he says, me and Kevin Owens, we do have beef. Me and Sami Zayn, we are cool, but I am keeping my eye on Judgment Day, and if anything happens, I will be there to help out. Then we had the Miz TV segment with Drew McIntyre. So Miz welcomes out Drew McIntyre to the ring, and Miz goes ahead and commends Drew McIntyre for throwing, Jey Uso to the wolves. And Drew says that he's nothing like the Miz, but then Miz goes ahead and says, we both have been champions, we've both been really hard workers, and held the company on our back. Miz then goes ahead and references Clash at the Castle and references the fact that the bloodline completely ruined Drew McIntyre's opportunity to regain gold, especially since they were in the UK. Drew goes ahead and responds by saying, karma is a bitch and stuff will happen. The New Day end up coming out And Kofi Kingston basically goes ahead and says, the Drew McIntyre that's sitting in front of us right now, we don't really know who he is because this guy's a coward. We know that that's not how you are. And Xavier Woods goes ahead and says that, for like the last year and a half, we've been calling you Big D, but it seems as though there's a lot of shrinkage going on right now. And you saw us looking a little bit too limp to get the job done. And I was like, dude, stop it. And Drew then goes ahead and says, well, it is actually Cody Rhodes' mess as to why Jey Uso is here. And he says, that Xavier and Kofi, you guys keep feeding what the bloodline's done to you too. And Kofi goes ahead and says, we haven't forgotten, but we are trying to move past it. And says that, we always want Drew McIntyre to do what's right. And then the Miz goes ahead and puts his hand up. And we just get the shut up Miz chants, even though he's trying to say, when my hand goes up, your mouth goes shut. Then we see that the Alpha Academy is backstage recovering from the match from earlier. Now that's obviously Otis going up against Bronson Reed. Then we see Ludwig Kaiser coming in trying to intimidate Alpha Academy. Chad Gable basically goes ahead and says that he still has his eyes locked on the Intercontinental Championship and to go and tell Gunther that he is coming for him. We had the match between Drew McIntyre and Kofi Kingston. Now this was a really good match. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Straight away, we see a vertical suplex coming in by Drew McIntyre onto Kofi. Kofi ends up kicking Drew McIntyre outside of the ring, following up with a trustful onto Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre hits a belly to belly and then ends up hitting a future shock DDT onto Kofi Kingston as well too. Kofi does this move where he flies into the announcer's desk and then Drew McIntyre ends up hitting an Alabama Slam. Went USA just then, I went Alabama Slam. Ends up hitting an Alabama Slam onto Kofi on the ring apron. Kofi then ends up hitting a reversal on Drew McIntyre, setting up the Claymore, following this up with an SOS. Now, the Viking Raiders did end up coming in and attacking Xavier Woods during this match. Then Drew McIntyre ends up capitalizing on this moment of Kofi being distracted by hitting him with a Claymore and gets the 3 counts. So Drew McIntyre wins the match. Then we see that Ivar comes into the ring and starts beating down on Kofi Kingston as we see Drew McIntyre walking away. Now, this is kind of almost resembling the fact that Drew McIntyre is somewhat turning again. He's not going to be a babyface for much longer. If people are, getting attacked in the ring, he's not going to stick around and watch it and help them out. Then we see Giovanni Vinci backstage is actually getting yelled at by Gunther. Now, I don't speak the language that Gunther speaks, but I can only imagine that, you don't want to be yelled at by Gunther. Then Ludwig comes in and says, hey, I've just caught up with Chad Gable, and he says, that he's coming for that Intercontinental Championship. And then Gunther goes ahead and says, well, we have a problem. And that Giovanni is now your responsibility, Ludwig. If something goes wrong with Giovanni, it's your fault. If something goes wrong with you, you have to answer to that. And he goes ahead and says that, I'm going to take control of my Intercontinental Championship and I will defeat Tommaso Ciampa myself. We see Gunther walk away and Ludwig's looking really angry at Giovanni. So hopefully they start to get it together. If not, we could potentially see Gunther no longer being the Intercontinental Champion. If it's Tommaso Ciampa who dethrones him, I would be so happy. Then we had the main event, which is Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Judgment Day. No, this is not the same video you saw 6 weeks ago. This is the same match that we're having again. Now, this is like a rematch for the titles that they obviously lost at Payback. So straight away from the very beginning, the brawl ensues between all 4 of them. Some awesome double teaming coming in by Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Damian Priest has a move where he's choking Kevin Owens out on the ring ropes. Sami does that move where he dives over the ring ropes as well too, and then ends up hitting a top rope DDT onto Damian Priest. Kevin Owens, when he gets tagged in, is just going into an absolute crazy mode. Hits a clothesline onto Finn and Damian outside of the ring, follows this up with a cannonball onto Damian, then hits a rolling senton onto Finn Balor. Then Finn Balor ends up hitting a sling blade when Dominic Mysterio is trying to cause some interference. Sami Zayn follows this with a blue thunderbomb onto Damian. And while Dominic Mysterio is helping and distracting the ref, we see Jey Uso coming down, and then JD McDonough ends up trying to help Dominic Mysterio. Cody ends up coming out to kind of neutralize the situation and add the numbers, obviously. Then we end up seeing that Sami hits a haluva kick. and then we see JD McDonough ends up hitting Sami Zayn, but then at the end the brawl just continues to break out and we see the Judgment Day winning. Now this episode of Monday Night Raw very much finished off in a chaotic fashion, and I'm here for it. But yeah, that's it. That is the Monday Night Raw review, Raw recap for this week. I will say Monday Night Raw this week was a lot easier to get through than last week's. Some weeks Monday Night Raw just feels like an absolute mission to get through, but this week was really good, was filled with really good matches apart from the Tegan Natalya one, but I mean that's neither here nor there. But yeah, if you guys stayed till the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you go ahead, like, comment and subscribe to the YouTube channel because that helps us out a lot. Thank you so much for the support you guys have been putting out on the channel. We really appreciate it because it obviously helps us to continue doing what we're doing. Make sure you go ahead and follow all of our social medias. They are in the description down below. Make sure you also go follow the Outcasted TikTok, Twitter and Instagram as well too, so you can stay up to date with what we're doing on the channel. We will have an NXT review this week coming in from Reese. Then we will be having the podcast this week where we're going to be doing a mastermind specialist question kind of thing for pop culture. So we're going to be asking each other a bunch of questions based on a specialist subject. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, make sure you go ahead and follow our Instagram so you can keep up to date when the podcast will be happening. We'll also have a SmackDown review this week as well as a AEW review, week in review kind of style from Ross. So yeah, that is how we're doing it this week. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.